Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be tier ranking every single book that I read in 2022. So 100 books. I'm not going to go into great detail telling you guys the full synopsis or my in-depth thoughts on each of these books. I'm just going to briefly tell you what I thought about them. But if you do want to hear anything else about these books, I go into pretty great detail in each of my end of the month wrap-ups, which are all on my channel. So definitely check those out if you want to know any more of my thoughts on all of these books. But let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so let me go over my tiers first. My top tier is I'm Obsessed. These are my 5-star, best of the best, favorites of the year. Love these books to death. Next tier is Stunning. These are my 4.5-star books, maybe even high 3-star books. These are books that I love, but they just weren't quite a new favorite. Then the next tier we have is Good Not Great. These books are mid. They're okay. I like them. I don't dislike them, but they're just not anything like super special. Then next we have It Wasn't Giving. These are going to be a lot of my 2-star books. Just books that I found more things that I didn't like about them than things that I did like about them, but they were tolerable enough for me to finish the book. And then my lowest category is Thumbs Down. These are the books that I hated this year, my 1 stars, books that I would never recommend, disappointed me, just not a fan. First we have One by One by Ruth Ware. When I think about the perfect winter book, I think about this book. I read it at the very beginning of last year when it was snowing outside, and it was just the perfect atmospheric snowy setting. It takes place in the Swiss Alps in this ski chalet. And I remember thinking it was pretty predictable, like the person I guessed from the get-go to be the killer ended up being the killer, but it still kept me on the edge of my seat and I still thought it was really enjoyable and fast-paced, so I'm gonna put it in Stunning. Okay, Brightside by Kim Holden. I kind of have an unpopular opinion about this one. I was not a fan. Mostly I didn't like the main female character. She was just way too sunshiny to the point of being annoying to me. This is the book that made me cry the hardest this year. This was definitely the saddest book I read, but that's not why I didn't like it. Like I said, it was mostly just our main female character, and I thought this book was kind of cringy, so I'm gonna put it in It Wasn't Giving. Normal People, you guys already know, my favorite book that I read this year. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. It felt like that book was written for me. The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This is honestly kind of a different version of One by One, a not as good version. I really liked the snowy setting again. It was very atmospheric, but I remember getting 3 female characters POVs and they literally all felt like the same person. There was like no differentiation between them. I'm gonna put this one in Good Not Great. No Exit by Taylor Adams. I also have an unpopular opinion about this book. I was expecting it to be amazing. I only see 5-star reviews of this book and it just didn't hit like I thought it would, but I don't know. I remember giving it 3 stars, but now I kind of want to put it in It Wasn't Giving. We'll keep it in It Wasn't Giving for now. I'm thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I watched the movie before reading the book, and I hate that I did that because it took away all elements of suspense when I was reading the book. So I knew it was going to happen, and I was like anticipating it happening. But I really liked the movie, and I really liked the book as well. I'm going to put it in Stunning. Una Out of Order. I remember reading this last year around this exact time because it takes place around New Year's Eve. This one was really cool. I loved the concept. She like ages out of order, so each year you don't know what year she's gonna jump to. There were some years I definitely liked more than others, but overall it was a really cool concept. I'm gonna put that one in Stunning. Rock, Paper, Scissors. Love this book. Another great winter thriller, but it's not a new favorite, so putting it in Stunning. Finlay Donovan is killing it. This is one, I think I initially gave it 4 stars, but it's kind of forgettable. I feel like this is just a middle of the road cozy mystery. I don't love it, but I don't really dislike anything about it. I'm gonna put it in Good Not Great. Get a Life, Chloe Brown. I have an unpopular opinion about this book too. I just did not feel the chemistry at all between the characters, and I thought it was so boring. I'm debating putting it in It Wasn't Giving or thumbs down. It wasn't a 1 star, but it was like a low 2 star. I'm gonna say It Wasn't Giving because the spice was good and I do want to try out the rest of the trilogy. The Love Hypothesis, definitely going in Ooh Stunnin'. I really love this book, but I liked her newest release better, and The Love Hypothesis wasn't quite a favorite, but really, really good. The Good Lie by A.R. Torre, I don't know, I feel like this was a very middle of the road book. It was a decent thriller at the time, but now I'm not remembering like anything about it. I'm gonna put it in good, not great, because I don't have anything bad to say about it besides it being forgettable. The Hating Game, I'm so sorry. This is my least favorite book of the year. I hated it, thumbs down, unpopular opinion, but I just thought the characters were so toxic, hated their relationship. I felt like it was a very problematic book. A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. I liked this book, but I feel like it was a little too childish for me. And I was expecting it to be sad, but I felt like the epilogue threw something else in there that made it unnecessarily sad. And I'm like, did we really need to do that? I'm gonna put it in good, not great. Verity by Colleen Hoover. This was a 5 star for me. I'm putting it in I'm obsessed. This book was so fast paced, could not put it down, had to know what was gonna happen. And it was just so entertaining the entire time. Did not disappoint. The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, however, was a bit disappointing. I liked that book less than I liked The Hunting Party. I just found it to be boring, and the twist was good at the end, but I'm like, was it even worth it because I was bored the whole time? I think I gave this book 3.5 stars, but honestly, it's like a low 3 star. And with how atmospheric her other books are, I was expecting this to give like amazing Parisian vibes, and it just wasn't hitting. I'm gonna put this one in It Wasn't Giving for now. This was a 3 star, but it's like a low 3 star. The Kiss Quotient also wasn't giving, unpopular opinion, but the only thing I liked about that book was the representation of our main character being on the spectrum. Other than that, I didn't like the trope. I didn't really care about the characters or the relationship. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. I'm obsessed with this book. I know a lot of people don't like it, but I personally loved it. I thought it was really touching. Birthday Girl by Penelope Douglas. This book was some of the best smut I have read this year, but I remember thinking some of the characters were really misogynistic, and I wasn't really rooting for the relationship. I didn't mind the taboo aspect to it, but it was just kind of messy. I don't know, it was entertaining. I'm gonna put it in good, not great. We Are the Brennans. I remember reading this around St. Patrick's Day time because it's about an Irish family, and I don't know, it was just not really doing anything for me. I rated it 3 stars because it wasn't bad, but I think I'm going to put it in It Wasn't Giving because I'm never going to think about this again, and I would never recommend it to anyone. Dead Until Dark by Charlaine Harris. This is a romance between a vampire and a human, and this series is what the show True Blood is based off of. I'm going to put this in good, not great. I enjoyed the vibes, but I'm not the biggest vampire girly. In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. I know a lot of people don't rate memoirs, and I'm not going to rate it on her experience at all because I feel like it's an important story worth telling, but the way this one was told just kind of kept me at a distance. It's told completely in second person, and it just didn't work for me personally. It was really hard for me to get through. I'm going to put this in good, not great. The Kind Worth Killing by Peter Swanson is one of my favorite thrillers I read this year. So good, so fast-paced, so intriguing. All the Missing Girls by Megan Miranda. This is a thriller that's told in reverse. I remember I read this for my book club at work, and we all thought it was way too convoluted and confusing, but it was really well written. I'm going to put it in It Wasn't Giving though. Bunny by Mona Awad. I'm going to put this in Ooh Stunnin'. This one is basically like The Secret History mixed with Mean Girls and make it trippy. I enjoyed it. It worked for me. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I also have an unpopular opinion about this series. It's just very average to me. I think maybe the teen detective trope just isn't my thing, but I don't love this series quite as much as everyone else. I'm going to put it in good, not great. Cleopatra and Frankenstein is one of my favorite books of the year. I cannot believe that it is a debut. So beautifully written. I love the romance between Cleo and Frank and just the whole story and all the characters' perspectives you get in that book. So, so good. Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is one I feel like I could put in either Ooh Stunnin' or Good Not Great, because I kind of feel like the first half is Ooh Stunnin', the second half is Good Not Great. There were things I liked about it, but things I didn't. But I do love Emily Henry, so I'm going to put it in Ooh Stunnin'. Reminders of Him. Initially, I rated this one 4 stars, but this is one of my least favorite Colleen Hoover books. I think probably my least favorite one that I've read from her so far. I just was not a fan of the child in the book. I just don't like reading about children, and the whole story was centered around that. I'm going to put it in Good Not Great. Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan. I read this one because it was compared to being like a Sally Rooney book, and I definitely see the comparisons. I enjoyed it. It took me a while to get into it, and I hated the main character, but she was still enjoyable to read from. And there was a character that came in the second half of the book that really made me like the story. And they're making it into a show on Hulu or Amazon. And Phoebe from Bridgerton is going to be in it. I think it's going to be really good. I'm putting this one in Ooh Stunnin'. The Cruel Prince. I've only read the first 2 in the trilogy, and I thought the first one was better. I really didn't like the second one. Overall, I just don't think this series is for me. I'm going to put it in It Wasn't Giving. I just didn't care about any of the characters or anything happening. It really put me off from YA fantasy. Every Value Break by Peter Swanson. Unfortunately for me, this was the first miss I've read from Peter Swanson. I feel like this book was trying to be female empowering, but it ended up being misogynistic, and it wasn't giving for me. Conversations with Friends. Ooh Stunnin'. I am a Sally Rooney girly, but I didn't quite love that one enough to make it a favorite. It was a high 4 star though. Daisy Jones and the Six. This is another one I'm in between Ooh Stunnin' and Good Not Great. I don't know. I feel like I'm one of the few that wasn't obsessed with this book. I think it was really, really well done, but I just personally didn't connect with it. I am very excited for the show though. I don't know. I'll put it in Ooh Stunnin'. It was really, really well done. Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. I'm going to put this one in Ooh Stunnin', but I did not like the reveal. I felt like it was really, really ambiguous, but I liked everything up until then. It's definitely my kind of story. I love the trope where it's the then and now timeline and you're trying to figure out why they stopped talking. The Other Black Girl, this one is mismarketed as a thriller. It was interesting, but just very, very slow. I did find the characters really interesting though. I'm going to put it in It Wasn't Giving because I predicted what was going to happen at the end. Girl, Woman, Other. This one was beautifully written, but I just don't think it was for me. I personally just didn't really connect with any of the stories, but the characters and the way it was told made it feel almost like nonfiction because it was very realistic. But again, just not a book for me. I'm putting it in It Wasn't Giving. Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I really liked this memoir. I feel like a lot of people liked it more than I did though. To me, it was definitely worth reading and one of those books that has a lot of great life lessons in it. This book made me laugh and it made me cry, but to me there wasn't anything in it that was super impactful and that I hadn't heard before. I'm going to put it in Ooh Stunnin' though. It's a solid 4-star book. The Anthropocene, reviewed by John Green. This one is Ooh Stunnin'. I highly recommend the audiobook of this one because John Green himself narrates it, and the concept for this book started out as a podcast, so it translates really, really well into audiobook format. And he's basically just reviewing a bunch of different topics throughout, everything from the Piggly Wiggly to Dr. Pepper to Disney World. It was very, very different and very interesting, and I love John Green. One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. I gave this book 3 stars, but it's a low 3 stars. I definitely liked One of Us Is Lying better. But I will say, I feel like Karen M. McManus is really good at writing a bunch of characters and differentiating between them so you don't get confused. However, I didn't find the mystery that intriguing, so I'm going to put it in It Wasn't Giving. The Club by Ellery Lloyd. I liked the vibes of this one. It reminded me a lot of The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and honestly, this is a book that I would compare to the show White Lotus, but I'm obsessed with White Lotus, and I wasn't obsessed with this book. I'm somewhere in between Good Not Great and It Wasn't Giving. I'm going to say It Wasn't Giving because I never think about this book. I honestly forgot most of it, and I feel like it was kind of confusing too. My Year of Rest and Relaxation. This is one of the weirdest books I read this year, but weird in a good way. I'm putting this one in Ooh Stunnin'. The Summer I Turned Pretty is a new favorite. I loved the summer vibes. It made me feel so nostalgic. Then I read the sequel to Dead Until Dark, the vampire romance, Living Dead in Dallas. I actually liked this one better than the first one. But still, I'm just not the biggest vampire person, and I wasn't like obsessed with this book at all. I'm going to put it in Good Not Great. It was very mid. Where the Crawdads Sing is a new favorite. I loved this book so much. I feel like it blended together all the genres of historical fiction, mystery, and romance so well. We Were Liars. This one was kind of convoluted to me. I was reading it mostly for the plot twist because people say that it has the most insane plot twist of all time, and I ended up guessing part of it, so I don't know. I didn't hate it. I know there's people out there that really don't like this book. I'm going to put it in Good Not Great. Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I'm putting this one in Ooh Stunnin'. I really liked the characters in this one, and I liked the concept of it taking place during this one night at this big party with all these famous people. Her books tend to take me a while to get into, and that one was no different. I definitely liked the present day timeline better than the backstory with Mick Riva. Was not a fan of him. Okay, I zoomed out a little bit. Hopefully that makes this easier to see. Funny You Should Ask. This was very middle of the road for me. I feel like this book was so hyped up, and people are generally in agreement that this book was very mid. I liked the concept, but it just felt really far-fetched. But she has another book coming out next year that I want to give a try. The Alchemist. I was loving the first half of this book. I was loving the quest journey kind of vibes. And it kind of read like a fable because it had a lot of great life lessons. But the second half took a religious turn that wasn't really for me. But I can totally see this being made into a movie. I think they've been trying to make this into a movie and it just hasn't worked out. But I'm putting this in Good Not Great. It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. I'm putting this in Ooh Stunnin'. I really liked the story. I feel like there were some cringy moments with the dialogue, but overall I thought the characters were great. I thought the setting was great, and I thought the romance was great. Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This is a new favorite. I'm obsessed. This did for me what Love in Other Words didn't. They are so similar, but like I said, I didn't like the reveal of why they stopped talking in Love in Other Words, and I feel like Every Summer After just did it a lot better. Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is one I was expecting to absolutely loved, and I gave it a low 3 stars. I'm going to put it in It Wasn't Giving. It's a really long book, and to me it was more true crime than like a thriller, so it just wasn't for me. The Island of Missing Trees. This was actually a 5-star prediction, and it took everything in me not to DNF this book. The writing was so pretty, but I just thought it was so boring. I gave this book 2 stars, but it's honestly such a low 2 stars that I'm gonna put it in thumbs down. Ugh, I hate to do it, but I just did not like that book. I didn't care about anything that was happening in it. The Last Mrs. Parrish. This is another one I'm in between Good Not Great and Ooh Stunnin'. I don't know. I think I'll put it in Ooh because I did really like the plot twist and it kept me interested and engaged the whole time I was reading it. The Hunting Wives by May Cobb. This is one that is almost in the I'm obsessed category, but not quite. I was not expecting to like this one as much as I did. It was a very fun thriller. These Texas housewives are crazy, and I just really enjoyed reading about them. The Last Time I Lied by Riley Sager. I'm putting this in Ooh. Really liked the summer camp setting. I think the twist isn't even revealed until the very last chapter, and I was not expecting it at all. It was really well done. But that one, I remember it did take me like 100 pages or so to get into. Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I have an unpopular opinion about this book. I really hated the male character Knox. I just thought he was so cringy. He was a big man-child. There were so many things about this book that annoyed me, and I'm honestly surprised that it's so hyped up and that so many people gave it 5 stars. But I will say it was a really long book. It was like 500 plus pages, and I was never bored and I never wanted to put it down, and I got through it pretty quickly. So this is a solid 3-star book. I'm putting it in good, not great. It's Not Summer Without You. This is the second book in the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. This one for me was good, not great. I feel like the other 2 books in the trilogy really paled in comparison to the first one, so I'm going to go ahead and grab We'll Always Have Summer and put it in that same category. Despite Belly getting older in the trilogy, I feel like she got more and more immature, and especially in the third book, I feel like the characters just completely changed, and yeah, it was a letdown with how much I loved the first book, but I still enjoyed the series overall. Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. This for me is Ooh Stunnin'. Not my absolute favorite of hers, but I really enjoyed the spice in that book, and the subplot of suspense leading up to that reveal kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. I was just so invested. Archer's Voice is definitely Ooh Stunnin'. Archer is a top tier book boyfriend. I absolutely loved him. The only thing I will say about Archer's Voice though is it took me a long time to get into, and I didn't really like the setting or any of the other characters in this book. This book made me think that I don't like small town romances. I found out since that I actually do if it's done a certain way. I just didn't like the way this one did it, but Archer makes up for it. I absolutely love him as a character. Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is an easy Ooh Stunnin'. Not a new favorite, sadly. I put People We Meet on Vacation by her up on such a high pedestal that I don't know if any of her books will ever be able to compare to that one. I'm hoping that Happy Place can do it for me, but I love anything and everything she writes. Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood was unexpectedly a new favorite that I am obsessed with. I liked it more than The Love Hypothesis, which I know is an unpopular opinion, but I just could tell that her writing really improved, and I enjoyed the story. The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. This is going in Ooh Stunnin'. This was cheesy and sweet in the best way possible. You just need like a sweet little corny romance, a palate cleanser. I think that is the perfect book. I really enjoyed reading it. Open Water, it was very beautifully written. It was like poetry, and it was very deep and insightful, but I think most of it is told in second person, if not all of it, so I never really connected to the story. But I do feel like this could be made into an HBO miniseries and it would be incredible. I'm putting it in good, not great. Mary Jane. I really liked this one. It's a solid 4 stars to me. I don't think I like it quite as much as everyone else, but I really enjoyed the coming of age elements, and I liked the message and the way a lot of tough topics were handled with such care. I thought it was really well done. It's going in Ooh Stunnin'. Carrie Soto is Back, one of my favorite books of the year. Easily going in I Am Obsessed. I did not think I would like a book about tennis so much, but I just loved following Carrie's journey and seeing her relationship with her dad. And honestly, the chapters with the tennis matches were some of my favorites. I was so on the edge of my seat and just rooting so hard for Carrie. My Best Friend's Exorcism. This book made me realize I don't think Grady Hendrix is for me. I felt like this book had a lot of problematic things in it. I'm putting it in it wasn't giving. And I didn't like the film adaptation either. The Mother-in-Law is going in Ooh Stunnin'. Absolutely loved this book. I initially gave it a 4-star and now it is a 4.5. It made me fall in love with Sally Hepworth and discover how much I love her thrillers. Then I did my reread of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone this fall. One of the few books on here that I would give 6 stars to if I could. Obviously, I love Harry Potter. Accidentally Amy. I thought this would be a really fun fall romance. It's about a girl who spills her pumpkin spice latte at Starbucks on this guy who turns out to be her boss. And the premise was really cute and I loved their little meet cute, but after that it just went so downhill. And I'm not going to judge it too harshly because I think she did self-publish it and there are a bunch of like typos and errors in it and it felt like a first draft, but sadly still a 1-star and a thumbs down from me. The Ex-Hex by Erin Sterling. This one is a really fun Halloween witchy kind of romance, but it wasn't anything to write home about. I feel like the vibes were good, but it was a little bit forgettable. Good, not great. Home Before Dark. This book is so close to a 5-star. This is one of my favorite thrillers that I read this year. It was so good. It had me so spooked. I was like looking over my shoulder the whole time I was reading it. I'm going to put this in I'm obsessed because this almost made it to my favorites of the year video. I was contemplating putting it in there. So good. My favorite Riley Sager by far. The Locked Door by Frida McFadden. I think my mistake with this one was that I listened to it on audiobook and I was not a fan of the audiobook narrator, but it was a pretty solid book. It was okay, very middle of the road. I'm going to put this in good, not great. I was kind of just doing a taste test of Frida McFadden because I know The Housemaid by her has blown up and I do really want to give that a try. The Secret History. This I read for my Dark Academia reading vlog and I really enjoyed it. I loved the characters. They were so intriguing. I do feel like it was very slow paced and I don't know if the climax is quite worth the journey. The story is definitely more about the journey than what the journey leads up to, but that's kind of the whole point. So this one's going in Ooh Stunnin'. The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. This one is a very low 3 stars. I was one of the few that's not quite as obsessed with The Silent Patient as everyone else, and I was hoping The Maidens might be more my thing, but sadly I liked that one even less. I'm putting it in it wasn't giving. The plot twist kind of just made me sad and upset instead of being shocking. 8 Perfect Murders by Peter Swanson. This was more mystery than thriller, but I still really like how everything came together. And this one is like an ode to mystery novels, so if you're a mystery fan, you'll appreciate this book. But it was just kind of middle of the road for me. Good, not great. They Never Learn. This is another one I'm in between Ooh Stunnin' and good, not great on. I really enjoyed it. I was not expecting some of the twists in here, but I feel like I never got super close to the characters and I never got like sucked into the story. It didn't quite keep me on edge like I was hoping. I'm putting it in good, not great, but it is a really high 3-star, almost a 4. Good Girl, Bad Blood. This is the 2nd book in the Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. Like I said, I am not a huge fan of that series. It's just okay to me. I feel like the 2nd book, I liked the characters more, but the mystery wasn't as intriguing. It was, again, just okay. So I'm putting it in good, not great. Daisy Darker, good, not great. I felt like this was very average. The ending and the reveal was really well done, but this made me realize that I don't usually like stories that take place all in one day or all in one night, because usually they have a whole bunch of flashbacks, and that's what happened with this book, and I was so over the flashbacks. It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. I'm putting this one in Oostanen because I am an Atlas girly, and this book gave me what I was wanting with more Atlas. November 9th is one of my favorite Colleen books, not necessarily for the characters, more so for the concept and the plot. I just love the story. Reading that book was such a roller coaster. It was a wild journey, but it was really, really worth it. The Wicked King by Holly Black. This is the sequel to The Cruel Prince. I'm not a fan of this series. I'm between it wasn't giving and thumbs down. I'm putting it in thumbs down. You know what? It's YA and I was confused. I had to look up a literal SparkNotes version for it and I didn't care about anything happening. It was a waste of my time. I'm sorry. Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is one where I really loved the concept and the premise, but not so much the execution. I'm putting it in good, not great. I feel like that one's a little overhyped. Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. This one's also really middle of the road for me. I hear a lot of people say they predicted what was going to happen in this one, and I'm just like, how? I had no idea where that book was going, and it was not where it ended up taking us. And it was honestly just like more sad than anything. The Good Sister by Sally Hepworth is going in. I'm obsessed. Sally Hepworth is one of my new favorite authors. I will read any thriller she writes. And The Good Sister was definitely my favorite that I read from her this year. Highly recommend the audiobook. It was so good. Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. This one is going in Oostanen. I wish this one was like 50 pages shorter and I would have felt like it was a perfect book, but overall I absolutely loved following Addie's journey and her story. Such an interesting concept, so different from anything else I've ever read. The Perfect Marriage, I'm going to put that one in good, not great. This one was really fun and juicy and it kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time, but the very last chapter really put me off because the way they revealed everything, the author basically just like spoon-fed the whole reveal to the reader, and it was just really, really weird. I didn't like how it was done. The Holiday Swap, I feel like I always have low expectations for Christmas books, and this one really surprised me. It made me realize that I like books that take place in a reality show, so I have a couple more like that on my radar for 2023. And this was another one where I realized I do like a small town setting if it's done right. This was a really fun story about twins that switch places. It's going in Oostanen. Highly recommend for the holidays. Truly Devious. Okay, I heard someone say that you were either a Truly Devious girly or a Good Girl's Guide to Murder girly, and that could not be more accurate because I really connected with Truly Devious. Such a good YA mystery, and I noticed so many parallels between Truly Devious and the show Wednesday. Let me know if you have picked up on the same thing at all, because I was reading it while watching the show and there are so many similarities. Definitely going to be continuing the series in 2023. The Family Next Door, another Sally Hepworth book that I loved. I'm putting it in Oostanen. Wasn't a new favorite of all time, but I absolutely loved it. Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. I finished this book, but I honestly just didn't like it. This one reminded me of Accidentally Amy, where the premise is good and I liked their meet cute, but from there it felt very half-baked. I'm gonna put it in thumbs down. Anna Holidays by Christina Lauren. This is one where I wasn't sure how I was gonna like it because it's a time loop premise. And the time loop ended up being my favorite part of the story, and then a third of the way through they just stopped the time loop and shift this book to a romance novel. I'm putting it in It Wasn't Giving because I hate that it just shifted to the romance. Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. I love this book. It's going in Oostanen. Basically a Christmas version of People We Meet on Vacation with a little bit of book lovers in there. If you like Emily Henry, you'll definitely like that book for the holidays. A Season for Second Chances. This was the last book I read in 2022 and I enjoyed it. I was really expecting it to be more wintry and more of a holiday book than it was. It spans over a pretty long time. It honestly like starts late summer and only the last 50 pages or so take place in winter. I liked the characters. They were really well thought out and very mature. And I like Jenny Bayless's writing. It feels very familiar and cozy. But this one was kind of middle of the road for me. It's gonna be good, not great. Credence by Penelope Douglas. Oh my gosh, a lot to unpack here. Another book I read at the very end of last year. And God, there were things I liked about this book, but overall I found it to be pretty problematic. If it didn't have the problematic things in it, I would be able to look past how taboo this romance is. It was so spicy, like the most intense, craziest smut I've read all year by far. Oh my God, I'm between good, not great, and it wasn't giving. I'm putting it and it wasn't giving. But I feel like if this book did not have the problematic elements to it, I would love it because it was some of the craziest spice I have ever read. Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I honestly read this because it's 86 pages and I was nearing the end of the year and needed like one more quick book to reach my reading goal. And this one I was not expecting to be as good as it was. For a little novella, it really packed a punch and was very impactful and I enjoyed it. Putting it in Ustunin. My Policeman by Beth Ann Roberts. I read this because it's one of Harry Styles' favorite books and he stars in the film adaptation, which I still need to watch. But I really, really loved this book. It was heartbreaking, but it made me feel like every single emotion. And it was just, it was really good. So well done. Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. I feel like I would have liked this one a lot more, but it had a twist in it that I was expecting because I had just watched a movie with the same twist. I read this book with my husband and we both guessed the twist because we had watched the movie together that had the same kind of trope. I'm putting this one in good, not great. Also, Lock Every Door really bugged me because there's this whole subplot that you think is going to be revealed in the end and like play into the twist, and it's just never mentioned again, never discussed. You never really get an answer, and that really, really bugged me. Oh my gosh, we're at our last book, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Okay, I really loved this book, but I do think the hype got to me with this one. I was expecting to like it a whole lot more than I did, but it's still a really beautiful story. It's gotta go in Ustunin. Alright, we finished. So one final look at my full tier rankings. I feel pretty good about it. I don't think there's anything I want to change. A lot of books landed in like the 4 to 3 star category this year. And luckily I didn't read too many books that I really didn't like. But also you can see I'm pretty picky because there weren't too many in my very top category. But these are the 100 books I read this year. So cool to see it all ranked like this. Alright guys, those are all the books that I read in 2022, tier ranked. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to give me a thumbs up. Thank you so much for following me along on my reading journey in 2022. If you want to follow me along in 2023, make sure you hit subscribe down below, and I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye guys.